Welcome back, everyone, to the movie theater lobby. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Leia.
And Leia, we've got kind of a doozy on tap today. It's, I think just by presenting this episode around the time that we're doing, it's inviting a lot of controversy.
Controversy?
Controversy.
Okay. I don't think you're wrong there.
No, controversy, indeed. You're right. A lot of people will debate, is this a Christmas movie? Is it not a Christmas movie? I think it's all going to come down to personal opinion, but maybe we'll have a few things to say about it along the way. So, Leia, what do you say, given the kind of minefield we're stepping into? Let's get ready to crawl through these little air ducts and step across this floor of broken glass as we talk today about...
Die Hard.
Go to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
So, indeed, Die Hard. Welcome to the Christmas controversy. Let's start with a little bit of plot, and then we'll get into covering our usual stuff, eh? Mm-hmm. So Die Hard is an action movie released in 1988.
I was only 8 years old.
Such a wee baby.
Not even 8, actually. I was only 7.
Yeah, only 7.
Yeah.
Probably didn't go catch this one in the theater.
I don't think so.
I'm going to wager.
My mom was pretty excited about it.
I bet she was.
Yeah.
Seeing Bruce Willis from Moonlighting taking on his first action role. That's a big step.
It's a big one.
Well, let's cover a little bit about what happens in Die Hard real fast. I'll try to make it as brief as I can. A plane touches down on Christmas Eve in Los Angeles, and we meet a very nervous airplane passenger, our hero, John McClane, played by Bruce Willis. McClane digs his fingers into his armrest and receives the mythical secret to surviving air travel from his fellow flyer.
After you get where you're going, take off your shoes and your socks. Then you walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes.
Next, we see a dapper-looking fellow greeting and addressing an office Christmas party. This man is Mr. Takagi, played by James Shigeta, president of Nakatomi Trading, which will be central to the story.
Thank you, one and all, and wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Soon we follow a busy woman as she walks to an office and peruses some papers. This is Holly Gennaro, director of corporate affairs for Nakatomi, played by Bonnie Bedelia.
Jenny, it's 5:40. Go join the party, have some champagne. You're making me feel like Ebenezer Scrooge.
Thanks a lot, Miss Gennaro.
Who we will soon find out is the spouse of John McClane. As Holly checks in with her children who are at home with the housekeeper, we once again catch up with John as he meets his hired limo driver, Argyle, played by Devereaux White.
Hey, I'm John McClane.
Argyle, I'm your limo driver.
Argyle delivers John to Nakatomi Plaza, and McClane makes his way up the tower, where he meets Mr. Takagi, as well as another corporate slimeball named Harry Ellis.
I want you to meet John McClane. Holly's husband. Holly's policeman. Alice is in charge of international development.
Heard a heck of a lot about you.
Just before being reunited with Holly, she takes John to a very swanky office with a private bathroom, giving him a chance to clean up and relax after a stressful flight. After some sweet sentiments comes some confrontational conversation, leaving both individuals frustrated before Holly has to excuse herself to give a speech to the partygoers. Outside, we're given a shot of a box truck emblazoned with the logo Pacific Courier as it arrives at Nakatomi Tower, and then a sedan also pulls up outside the front of the building. Two thugs step out of the vehicle and enter the building, only to dispatch the desk clerk and begin infiltrating the office building. Word is then given to the box truck in the parking garage, and an entire crew of henchmen are released from the vehicle upon the unsuspecting tower. Elevators are put on lockdown, security services and communication systems are cut off, security personnel are killed and replaced by undercover terrorists. An elevator opens on the floor where the celebrants are enjoying their prosperity when gunfire erupts, sending panic through the festive event. John hears the commotion, and his officer instincts and training kick in as he grabs his service pistol and immediately jumps to action. Now, we finally meet our chief antagonist, Hans Gruber. Hans. Bubby.
How do you do? It's a pleasure to meet you.
Played by Alan Rickman. The party is taken hostage by the terrorist group, and John does his best to assess the situation and get the attention of the Los Angeles police, while he endeavors to survive as a one-man army.
Mayday, mayday. Anyone copying Channel 9? Terrorists have seized the Nakatomi building and are holding at least 30 people hostage. I repeat, unknown number of terrorists, 6 or more, armed with automatic weapons at Nakatomi Plaza, Century City.
As our action hero does his best to be covert, let's get out of the plot so we don't blow his cover, eh? All right, Leia. So I kept that as brief as I could. I hope I did all right
You
there.
did all right.
So let's start covering a few of the people that brought us this whole adventure.
Let's start with the director.
Start with the director.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Who directed this movie?
John McTiernan.
John McTiernan, indeed. Very well known for action movies.
Mm-hmm. He actually, so a couple weeks ago we talked about Shane Black.
Mm-hmm.
He has a lot of connections to Shane Black, honestly, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
He directed Predator. And of course, we know from a couple weeks ago, Shane Black played Hawkins in the movie.
He did.
Yeah. He also directed The Last Action Hero.
Right.
Which Shane Black wrote the screenplay for.
Right.
So another connection there.
Yeah.
And they both kind of do action type ish films.
Yeah, they're both very kind of stuck in that vein for forever, it seems.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, Predator, Last Action Hero. He also did Hunt for Red October.
Just a great movie.
And then Die Hard 1 and Die Hard with a Vengeance, which was the third movie in the series.
Yep. I think his movies get a little less interesting as he goes on. Because we have the Thomas Crown Affair, which actually was pretty well known for the time. Then we got the 13th Warrior.
Right, yeah. It could have been better.
And then it really goes downhill with Rollerball.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Forgot that one even existed.
Yeah, that one's a thing. And then the last movie he did was Basic from 2003. Oh. Do you know why that was the last movie he did?
I know he had some troubles.
He most certainly did. So he was actually accused of hiring a private detective named Anthony Pellicano to tap the phones of Charles Roven. And Charles Roven is one who produced Rollerball. They had some kind of messy dispute. Yeah. And he really wanted some dirt on Roven. So he actually got in trouble with the FBI for doing that. Ended up spending 10 months in jail and then serving the rest of his time on house arrest.
Right.
Sounds like he's starting to come back out of retirement a little bit, but for the most part, the last movie he's done was in 2003.
Maybe it's best if it just stays that way.
Yeah. But he was one of only 2 directors with films that are both on the IMDb top 250 and the bottom 100.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Which movies hit where?
So Die Hard is on the top 250. Rollerball is on the bottom 100.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. The only other director who's had this accomplishment is Guy Ritchie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's the only other one to have that distinction.
That's interesting company.
Yeah, yeah, right?
Well, let's leave John McTiernan on house arrest and maybe go to someone next, huh?
Let's talk about some of the writers, shall we?
Yes, please.
So we got Roderick Thorpe.
Right. Yeah, he's a novelist by trade.
Yeah, he pegs me as kind of the true crime type, where he's just really into that type of thing.
He actually worked as a detective for his father's detective agency when he was fresh out of college.
Some real life experience.
Yeah.
And then we got Jeb Stewart. He's the one who wrote the first draft of Die Hard. He also wrote Die Hard, the Die Hard video game.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Big credentials.
He also wrote 24 episodes of one of my favorite TV series, Vikings Valhalla.
Oh, hey.
Yeah,
Getting into the Nordic action there. All right.
So he's a pretty prolific writer.
Yeah.
And like I said, he wrote the first draft of Die Hard, but Stephen E. D'Souza is the one who actually rewrote the screenplay for Die Hard after Jeb.
Yeah. The final guy who came in and gave it its final treatment.
Yep. So Stephen D'Souza, he wrote the screenplays for The Running Man, for Die Hard 2. He also worked on Die Hard, the video game. He co-wrote the screenplay for Hudson Hawk.
Another Bruce Willis.
Another Bruce Willis film. With Daniel Waters, which we talked about before.
Right, of course.
And then last week we talked about Daniel Waters because he contributed to the screenplay for Batman Returns. So,
of course.
Yeah. So kind of some interesting movie connections there.
Things keep on falling back to previous episodes. Yeah. My God.
Do you have anything else on the writers?
The only other thing I'm going to bring in and talk about real fast is just with Roderick Thorpe. The novel that he wrote called Nothing Lasts Forever is the specific novel that Die Hard was based on.
Yeah, and I think I have some information once we start going into the inspiration for the film. We can talk a little more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some more things on him as well, but I just wanted to mention that real fast.
Absolutely.
Just
it's important.
As it's the kind of direct connection to the movie there. All right. Writers kind of put to bed?
Yeah, for now.
All right. Who are we going to talk about next?
Well, of course we're going to talk about Bruce Willis.
Oh, yeah. We got to go to the top of the building.
Bruce Willis was born in Idar, Obsterdam, oh my God, I'm totally murdering. Idar Oberstein. I think it's Oberstein.
We'll go with that.
Germany.
Right.
His mom was German and his father was an American soldier. So about 2 years old, he moved back here to New Jersey with his family. He had a stutter as a young kid.
Did he really?
And he actually found out that acting removed the stutter.
Oh, no kidding.
So that's kind of how he got into acting in the first place, theater and acting and all that kind of stuff.
I wonder what the mechanism is behind acting that
maybe it's the stage fright that removes the stutter.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe it was something, give his mind something else to focus on.
But you would never have known he had a stutter. I mean,
No.
you can't tell at all.
No, I would never have known.
No. When I read that, I was very surprised.
Yeah.
And of course, he gained his stardom in the show
Moonlighting. Yeah. No, I remember actually seeing a number of episodes.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
I never watched it. So.
I was too young for it to be interesting to
Sure.
me, but my parents would watch it quite a
Really?
bit. And, I would just kind of watch it by proxy.
Another fun fact about him that has nothing to do with the movie, but about him in general, is that he was raised as a Lutheran, but he no longer practices.
Oh, okay.
And there was a quote that he had said that I thought was very intelligent way of saying this. This is a quote from him.
Okay.
Organized religions in general, in my opinion, are dying forms. They were all very important when we didn't know why the sun moved, why weather changed, why hurricanes occurred or volcanoes happened. Modern religion is the entrail of modern mythology. But there are people who interpret the Bible literally. Literally! I chose not to believe that's the way. And that's what makes America cool, End quote.
That is a very good quote.
Very thoughtful.
Yeah,
I thought it was
absolutely.
interesting, particularly since we're not super religious ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a very good way to put it where you're not really knocking a religion, but
Yeah. He's saying for him it wasn't working.
it wasn't working. Yeah.
But
and
for
this
other
is his
people,
reason.
that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So aside from Moonlighting, he had starred in a few other things before Die Hard as well. His first major movie credit was in a movie called Blind Date, where it was much more of a romantic comedy. So he had been known as a comedic actor up until
Interesting.
Die Hard.
I mean, he was funny in Die Hard.
Yeah.
But he was an action star in Die Hard.
He worked with John McTiernan and Steven Souza to put a little more dark humor into the role. But one of the funny thing is he's sort of, so previously when we had talked about Dumb and Dumber, we talked about Jeff Daniels being a serious actor trying to get into a comedic role and how the studio were all against it, right? In this instance...
Turns out it's the same way, except the other way
Yeah, it's
around.
reversed. So he's the comedic actor who is trying to get into a serious role. And I had read that apparently when the trailers for this film first premiered, audiences were laughing at the fact that Bruce Willis was starring in this role. And they were assuming that the film was more of a comedy than a sort of dark action thriller sort of deal. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of reversal of connection.
Didn't they even take his face off of the cover for a little while because they were worried that it was going to be negative PR for the film?
Yes, they took his face off of all early promotional materials until the film started to actually get some good reviews
traction.
coming out, because they didn't want people turned off by the idea that it was a comedy.
Looking back on it now, you're like, wow, really?
Yeah.
Like, that's so stupid. But back then, I'm sure it made sense to do it.
Because now, when people think of Bruce Willis, they think of action movies.
Yeah, absolutely they do.
So he's completely turned that perspective around.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
He originally declined the role for Die Hard.
Did he know?
Because of his contractual obligations to Moonlighting.
Right.
But, what's her name? Is it Sybil Shepherd?
Sybil Shepherd, yeah.
She became pregnant, so the show stopped production for 11 weeks, and so Willis had enough time to take the role.
Enough time to squeeze it in at
Yeah,
least.
literally squeeze it in. Because
Yeah.
he would go from Moonlighting, when he first started, he went from finishing up doing Moonlighting and then coming into the set to do Die Hard.
Yeah.
The same day. He was exhausted.
And that exhaustion is what led some rewrites to increase other characters' screen time to give Bruce Willis a break on screen time.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it actually changed the film, that whole ordeal.
Whole ordeal did, yeah. And then when he took the role, he was offered $5 million for the role.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah, which at the time was
Unheard of.
Unheard of, yeah. It really changed the game for actors getting paid what they should be paid for the roles that they're playing.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, I think, still a lot of work to come to bring what actors actually deserve versus what the corporations want to keep.
Yeah. Especially for these blockbusters. I mean, it made enough money to warrant that. So
I agree.
So he's also been in several other films.
Yeah. What are a few? Give me a few standouts.
So some of my favorites, of course, is what I wrote down.
Oh yeah, I did the same.
One I want to mention is The Last Boy Scout because
Right.
Shane Black.
Yeah.
Okay. But also he was in Pulp Fiction, The Fifth Element, Sin City.
Yeah. A fun little role in that one,
Yep.
too.
Two of my underrated but really favorite movies of his is Split and Glass.
Right.
Love
Well,
those ones.
Unbreakable, of course.
Unbreakable.
Which started that whole...
Which started the whole thing, yes. So yeah, he's been in a lot of films that I really love. Was there any other ones that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I mean, there's 12 Monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
Which was fantastic.
Love that movie.
I not one of my favorites, but I
Okay.
wanted to mention it just for the irony.
Okay.
Armageddon.
Oh. All right.
But also he's notable for The Sixth Sense, so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we have to mention that one. So he's really had kind of a decent relationship with M. Night Shyamalan.
He has,
of course.
yeah.
Then he also starred in The Expendables.
He did the voice for Look Who's Talking.
Yeah, Look Who's Talking. Was it the first one or the second one? I forget.
I think it was the first one, but regardless,
he
it was his
in-
voice.
Yeah, he was
only.
in one or two of the Look Who's Talking movies.
Yeah, more of a comedic role, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
And then obviously all the rest of the Die Hard movies.
Yeah. Back in March of 2022, he was diagnosed with aphasia.
Yeah.
Which kind of ended his career. At that point, he retired from acting.
Yeah, he retired willingly. It was his
Willingly,
choice.
yeah. And then in February 23, he was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. So he's had some setbacks, and
Yeah.
he won't be back.
No.
But there were some towards the end. He was doing some movies that were not great.
Yeah, yeah. He wasn't
And
really on much of a role.
He was getting Razzies, and he was getting like some real bad PR. And it turned out a lot of those people had to take it back.
Yeah.
Because he was already feeling sick at that point, and he wasn't himself.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people had to come out and publicly apologize and redact those Razzies and things
Yeah.
like that because it didn't make sense because he was already not
There
all
were
there.
Other circumstances.
Other circumstances, his health issues were a big part of that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I also wanted to mention Looper because I really like that movie.
Oh, that is a good movie. Yeah.
I really like that one.
Yeah, so that's all I have
That's
on
what we got for
Bruce.
Brucey
For now.
boy.
Yep. We got to talk about Alan Rickman
Yeah,
next.
let's do that. That's kind of where I was going to head next. So
Yeah, he was 40 at the time that he did Die Hard.
yeah,
That's
incredible.
It was his film debut. So
Yes.
he's been in theater for a really long time.
Theater,
television.
A few television things, yeah.
Yeah, but this was his first film debut. And it
What
was
a
like
debut.
2 weeks after he came to LA.
Yeah, it was really fast.
And he was pushing against it. He didn't want to do it. He didn't think that it would translate well.
And
a
he
lot
didn't
of times
want his first role to be a villain.
he didn't want it to be a villain. Kind of typecasted him from there and
Yeah,
out
it did,
because he played a
unfortunately.
villain too good, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's got a talent for the
Yes.
villains.
And so the voice. Can
Yeah.
you talk about the voice for a second?
It's so menacing.
It's so menacing, and there's a reason behind it.
Mm-hmm.
He suffers from a tight jaw,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of the reason for that deep tone and that languid delivery that he would
Mm-hmm.
perform, which is kind of what he's known for, is that voice.
Yeah. His
So
very
what used to be
particular
a
speech pattern.
problem turned into something that
His signature.
turned into his absolute signature.
Yeah, so unfortunately he passed away in 2016, which is just really super tragic because every role he did was phenomenal. He's an amazing actor.
Well, he was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves,
Mm-hmm.
and even though that film tanked, everybody talks about how Rickman's portrayal of the Sheriff of Nottingham was one of like the most talked about roles that had come out.
I love most everything about that movie except Kevin Costner.
Oh well, okay, there's that, yeah.
The fact that let's not even get into the fact that Robin Hood does not have a British accent in that movie.
And then he met his wife Rima Horton when he was just 19, and she was only
Oh,
18.
wow.
And they didn't get married actually until 2012.
Oh, no kidding.
Around the time he was pretty sick.
Yeah.
Because he had gotten his first diagnosis in 2005 for prostate cancer, which actually he had an operation for, and it coincided with the casting of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
And he actually thought about whether or not he was going to return to the series, but he decided in favor of returning to the series. And this is a quote from him: "The argument that wins is the one that says, see it through, it's your story."
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, he really embraced that role of Snape.
Yeah, so he wanted to he wanted to write his own story, regardless of how sick he was. He wanted to finish what he started.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, he actually had a stroke, which led to a pancreatic cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
So he passed just 6 months after that. Interestingly, David Bowie passed away 4 days before he did.
Yeah, real close together.
Real close together. So it was a pretty tough week that week.
Yeah, it
we
really
lost two
was.
very beautiful people.
2016, what a year.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
And just a funny thing. Empire magazine called his portrayal of Gruber the finest villain since Darth Vader. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
He is an exceptionally notable villain.
Yeah.
For sure he is.
Yeah.
So as exceptional as his portrayal as Hans was, and as good as he is at villains, he's also done a lot of acting where he hasn't played villains. Mm-hmm. So he was in Dogma, where he played Metatron, the angel who speaks for God, basically.
Yeah.
Which was, I loved that role, that little performance. He was only in it for just a short little bit, but
it was perfection,
man, it was
wasn't
so
it?
good.
Yeah.
Yes, so wonderful. Galaxy Quest, as well, because who can forget that movie? That was so funny. I love that movie. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where he played the voice of Marvin the robot, and then even Love Actually.
I was going to mention that one. Yeah, he was the husband in a kind of weird relationship.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got on Alan.
That's all I got for Alan as well. I've got 3 more people that I kind of want to just quickly touch on.
Okay.
So next I want to give some shout out to Bonnie Bedelia.
Of course, because she's a major role in this
film.
film.
Exactly, she is. So Bonnie Bedelia, she played Holly Gennaro McClane, of course. She was the director of corporate affairs for Nakatomi, as we mentioned earlier. And she, kind of a neat thing I found out about her that I did not know previously, is that she was born Bonnie Bedelia Culkin.
Oh, yeah. She's Macaulay Culkin's aunt.
Yeah, Macaulay Culkin and Kieran Culkin.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. Her most of her siblings are all actors, but she's the one who has the most recognition. Her brother Kit is the one who is the father to the notable Culkins that most of us know.
The notable ones.
The notable Culkins.
Yeah. Yeah, Bonnie was in a lot of things, and I don't think she really hit my genre.
No, she didn't typically.
Because when I was looking at her list of things that she's done, like, she's been in almost as many things as most actors
she's got a
actors have been in.
A huge casting
huge list.
Yeah.
Most of it I've never seen.
Yeah, most of it I haven't seen. A lot of it I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know of the titles, but like you said, they just weren't in my interest, so they would never have really passed my eyeballs. But she did a lot of TV movies that were very kind of mother parental rights movies, which I've heard really good things about. I remember hearing a lot of good acclaim about them, like A Mother's Right, Any Mother's Son.
She was most recently in the TV show The Hill from 2023.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, she's been in a lot of things. I actually wrote down she'd been in like 90 plus films or TV shows and films.
TV shows, yeah.
Media.
Credits in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, she spent a long time in a movie that had turned into a series called Sordid Lives.
Oh, okay.
Turned into a TV series, I should say. Mm-hmm. I think that ran for a few years even.
She was in Stephen King's film Salem's Lot, and Needful Things. So those are 2 that are definitely in my wheelhouse.
Yep.
So I've probably seen her in
those
as well.
Those ones I think are the only other ones I had seen of her work aside from the Die Hard.
Yeah.
But she did get her motion picture start in, well, maybe not her start, but her kind of most notable breakout role before Die Hard was in a film called Heart Like a Wheel, about a female drag racer.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
And she also she spent almost her entire life in entertainment in various, either be it on the screen or on the stage. She was a ballet dancer for quite a while she was younger. She got scholarships to performance and arts schools, and then spent a lot of time on the theater stage before getting into TV series and movies and things, and then parlaying that into motion pictures. So let's go on to the 2 other kind of minor characters I want to point out real fast. We don't have to talk about them a whole ton because they did have very small parts in the film, but let's go to Reginald VelJohnson.
This is Sergeant Al Powell of the Los Angeles
Police Department.
I don't think that was a small part.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. He
That
actually was
huge.
sort of like
integral.
He was almost like a second hero.
Yeah. The only weird part was that they never meet until the end.
Yeah.
And even in real life, they didn't actually meet until the end.
They acted separately.
Yeah. But he was a huge role.
Yeah, he really was.
Reggie, that's what he goes by.
Reggie.
Reggie.
Okay.
Not Reginald.
Got it. I will refer to him as Reggie.
Reggie.
So Reggie is very well known for playing police officers.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much all he does.
Yeah, basically.
Pretty much.
So he also does have a lot of other roles I was noticing too as like clergyman.
Oh, interesting.
And I think a few roles that were like education, like teachers and that sort of thing.
He also plays several roles as himself.
Does he?
Yes.
Oh.
He plays himself in the TV show Bones.
Oh, no kidding.
Monk.
Wow.
Chuck. And Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, all of them one-word titles except for the last one.
Right? I know. I was saying, I'm like, this sounds stupid.
Yeah.
They're all just one word, but yeah.
His big police officer roles were Ghostbusters, Die Hard, and of course, who could forget? Did I do that?
Carl Winslow.
Carl Winslow in Family Matters.
Yep. He was also one in Turner and Hooch.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for adding that in. I
Yeah.
completely forgot.
Yeah, for this role, he was only paid $100,000.
Yeah, not much compared to $5 million.
Yeah, right? It feels a little wrong. It feels a little wrong.
Yeah. He's
I mean,
not
to be
exactly
fair,
the star, but
Bruce Willis did a lot more of his own stunts.
Mm-hmm.
But he did do his own stunt in the car when he was backing out.
Oh, right.
He did that himself.
Yeah, that was
so he did some dangerous stunts.
Yeah, not probably gonna kill you kind of stunt, but it's still cool.
Yeah, it's still pretty cool.
Get to reverse right off the back of a big retaining wall?
Yeah.
Hell, I'd love to do that.
He was also in an episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Was he?
I just had to put that out there because I know how much we love Tales from the Crypt around here.
Gotta rewatch that series.
Right?
I love that. Not every episode is good, but
there's gotta be a lot
of
of
fun at least.
Like movie star
there's so many
drop-ins
cameos
that we
so
don't
many
even
you
remember.
forget about.
Yeah.
You watch it and you're like, oh my god, that's so and so,
yeah.
and then you're 2 weeks later you forget that they were ever in it till you watch it again.
And who was the other one you wanted to mention?
So the last one I wanted to talk about was Devereaux White. Okay. Argyle.
Yeah, Argyle. He's funny.
Not a whole lot to talk about for him. Even his credit list is not terribly long. But while he's mostly known for his role in Die Hard as Argyle, he did appear way earlier in one of my other most favorite movies of all time, The Blues Brothers.
Oh, did he?
He did. He had a small blink and you'll miss it role as the child who walks into Ray Charles's music store and attempts to steal a guitar.
Oh, really?
And then...
How old was he?
He must have been, I'm going to guess, somewhere I would say between the age of like maybe 9 and 12.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Young.
Yeah.
Little guy, because he was pretty young in this film.
He was pretty young in this film, absolutely. It's the scene where Ray Charles catches him stealing and shoots a gun at the wall to stop him from stealing. Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was a fun little connection.
It is a nice connection. I like it.
Robert Davi.
Robert Davi
From Goonies made an appearance in this one.
Kind of do have to mention him a little bit.
As Agent Johnson.
Yeah, he doesn't have a huge role, but he's in it.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He stops by as one of the 2 Agent Johnsons.
Yes.
All right, enough about all that. Let's walk into the area where we hear Leia talk about legs.
This one had some long legs.
I bet it did.
It has 12.09 legs. A lot of other films had like 5. It had a $28 million budget.
Okay.
Opening weekend, it made $601,851.
Ooh, baby, that's some money.
It is, but domestically, it made almost $86 million.
That is so much money.
Yeah, and
I
then,
can't even fathom.
well, compared to the $28 million budget, it did pretty well.
Yeah.
And then worldwide, it did almost $144 million. So it did pretty well. I don't know if you've written anything down about the awards it's gotten.
I didn't.
Okay, I did.
Then please go through, because I've really only got one thing to say about this little section.
Okay.
So go ahead and do what you got.
So at the 1989 Academy Awards, Die Hard was nominated for Best Film Editing, Best Visual Effects, Best Sound Effects, and Best Sound. And it won a BMI TV/Film Music Award for the score.
Oh, okay.
So it did win an award for the score.
Sure. Hey, it's something.
Yeah, which I read a lot about the score, and I'm not going to go into any detail about it in this episode. But there was a lot of turmoil about the score because they wanted to use certain songs. They wanted to use
Yeah.
Ode to Joy, but then they didn't want to do that. And then they decided to use a derivation of it and mix it with something else. And then they ended up using some sound from the Alien movie that they didn't use in the original Alien movie. So there's like a lot of back and forth, but clearly it did well because it's both nominated as an Academy Award and it won at the BMI TV Film Music Awards. So...
Well, I know that the whole Ode to Joy thing was very interesting because John McTiernan wanted to use it, and the film composer, I forgot his name.
Michael Kamen?
Michael Kamen did not want to use it because he felt it was like heresy
Yeah.
to use Ode to Joy as a theme for the villains. But that's when John McTiernan said, well, hold on, because they used Ode to Joy in A Clockwork Orange as the theme for the droogs and the violence.
And that got a lot of award,
it seemed so very fitting.
Yeah.
Turns out Michael Kamen is a huge Kubrick fan.
Uh-huh.
So when he heard that justification, he was like,
all right, we'll
okay,
rework it,
I get
though.
you. Yeah. So it's not going to be exact, but we'll go ahead and do that.
It's gonna go!
So I thought that was a fun little
It's Michael
ordeal.
Kamen, right? He's the one who won the award for the score. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so also, notably, Die Hard was selected by the United States Library of Congress to be preserved in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Yeah, that was the thing I had written down, so I'm glad you covered it.
Yeah, and that was in 2017, so it has to, we gotta say it.
Yep. Every time it shows up,
Every time it shows up, we'll let you know. All right, so do you want to get into some of the inspiration for the film?
Yeah, let's talk about that because there's a really interesting connection with all that inspiration.
Okay.
So where do you want to start off with that?
Well, we talked about it being based on the adaptation of the 1979 novel Nothing Lasts Forever, written by former private detective investigator Roderick Thorpe.
Yep.
And Thorpe had actually been inspired to write Nothing Lasts Forever by a dream that he had, in which armed assailants chase a man through a building. And then after he watched the 1974 disaster film The Towering Inferno, that's how he came out with this book.
Nothing Lasts Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can totally see that as major inspiration because that is so much of what this movie is.
It's crazy how they, somebody, a creative, can just have a dream and a thought, and they can turn it into an entire novel.
Yeah.
So amazing.
I wish I had that talent.
I know, right?
So in the fun connection that I had found during this, and you may have found the same thing, is that Roderick Thorpe's novel series follow a character named Joe Leland. So Joe Leland was the name of the main character in the book The Detective and its sequel book Nothing Lasts Forever. The Detective was turned into a movie in 1968 starring Frank Sinatra, who starred as Joe Leland. This movie is the direct follow-up to that, but they changed the character name, so it's no longer Joe Leland, it's now John McClane. But the odd thing is, so that slime ball that I mentioned earlier, Harry Ellis, the actor who plays Ellis is Hart Bochner. He's the son of Lloyd Bochner, who played in The Detective with Frank Sinatra. So he, the son of a man who was in The Detective, is also in Die Hard. Round and round we go. So
well, and so you know also that Frank Sinatra was offered the role, right? But he was like 79 or something. He's really old.
He's like, bro, I'm so old.
So he turned it down. He turned it down, guys. Don't worry.
He turned it down because he was too old and he had too much money.
Yeah. He's like, I'm good, bro. I don't need it.
I'm set. I think at that time he had already had his residency in Vegas for how long at that point? So I'm sure he was like, I'm fine.
So the screenplay writer Jeb Stewart began working 18 hours a day at his office at the Walt Disney Studios on this film.
That's a long day.
Which left him kind of on edge. So this is going to kind of tail into like a little bit more inspiration for the film. So he had an argument with his wife. He went for a drive and he saw a box in his lane. And he was unable to avoid it. He was forced to drive over it and discovered it was empty.
Right.
So according to Stewart, he pulled over to the side of the freeway, his heart pounding. And from this, Stewart conceived like a whole theme of a story of a man who should have apologized to his wife before a catastrophe. So when he returned home to reconcile with his wife, he wrote 35 pages that same night for the script. And before that, he was having a really hard time writing. He was suffering from having some inspiration. So this was kind of like the inspiration he needed. So that he used that to shape McClane's relationship. He also drew upon marital problems of his peers, including divorces and ex-wives, the people that he knew, and reverting to using their maiden name.
It's very poignant because in the movie, John and Holly were kind of split-ish. She moved to LA for a better job, and he stayed in New York to continue working his police job. They weren't divorced, but they were sort of separated-ish.
She was making it pretty clear that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and she also was still rather looking forward to him showing up.
She was.
Why don't we make it easy? I have a spare bedroom. I mean, it's not huge or anything, but kids would love to have you at the house.
They would, huh?
I would too.
And when they had reunited, when John first arrived, they seemed to be kind of on good-ish terms. And then they started to argue a little bit.
We're going to have this
Remember, you didn't
conversation
waste
again.
much
We
time
did this in
getting out of
July.
line.
We never finished this conversation in July.
I had to take it.
Right. No matter what the consequences, no matter what it did to our marriage,
It
you had
didn't
to
do
take
anything
this
to our marriage
opportunity.
except maybe change your idea of what our marriage
I
should
think
be.
you have a clue as to what my idea of our
I know
marriage should be. Holly.
exactly what your idea of our marriage should be.
And then she had to excuse herself to make that speech. And that's when the terrorists arrived. So they were never able to reconcile that confrontational conversation. So that's where I think that whole inspiration you're talking about of a man who wasn't able to apologize to his wife kind of fits in. So
and then that whole reverting to using their maiden name, the people that he's talked to, she goes by her maiden name in the film, even though they're still married, because it's almost like an indication to, like, you know, if you don't fix things, like, this is going to be permanent. I can't take your last name if you're not going to be, you know, with me.
And he even brings that up to her in the film, and that's part of what sets off their whole argument.
I guess you didn't miss my name, though, huh? Except maybe when you're signing checks. Since when did you start using Ms. Gennaro?
It's a Japanese company.
Using the name of my husband who's across the country makes it seem, you know, like there's a power
like there's
imbalance.
problem.
So rather than all of that, she just uses her maiden name. So
Jeb is also a huge fan of Western film actor John Wayne.
Oh, right.
So he used a lot of the Western motif and Western background in his film, including a lot of the cowboy lingo.
Yeah.
So like there's a part in there where he says yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yeah, and that comes from that
and
inspiration.
There's even a scene where Hans Gruber was talking to John over the radio.
Just another American who saw too many movies as a child. Another orphan of a bankrupt culture who thinks he's John Wayne, Rambo, Marshall Dillon.
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequin shirts.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Little nods to that Western edge that he's trying to give to the film. All right. Well, anything else on the inspiration?
Well, I suppose this sort of fits as inspiration.
Okay.
So let me throw this in here. Jeb Stewart, before starting the script, he was contracted already to do the script, but before he had started it, he had taken a tour of the brand new, still under construction, 20th Century Fox Plaza building. And during that tour, he actually started to write, or started to conceive of ideas, and then when he got home, he wrote using actual locations in the building and even some items from that he saw during his tour into the script. Well, it turns out that the building, the Nakatomi Tower, is actually Fox's Fox Plaza building. So he got inspiration from the Fox Plaza building. They used that building as Nakatomi Tower. Because Fox owned the building and Fox produced the film, and a lot of the film was still under construction, they didn't have to worry about destroying the building because they were already paying for it to be constructed anyway. So a lot of the special effects and explosions that they did were real, not computer generated, because they could just explode things on their building if they wanted to. They had to do a lot of the gunfire scenes at night after everyone had left the building because the sound of gunfire had made the actual people who worked there nervous during the day.
Shock.
So in a nod to inspiration, that was sort of a fun little tidbit.
It reminds me of something I read, actually. Ronald Reagan stayed in Fox Tower.
Oh, did he?
After his presidency, he had a place there. And their Secret Service they go through the building. They sweep the building before he went in there to make sure everything's okay. And they found several gun casings.
Yeah.
And there was like a big to-do about it. And they ended up finding out later that those were just all left over from the set of Die Hard.
Oh, right, of course, yeah, because I'm sure they didn't account for
They
every
didn't get
single
all
casing.
of them, right? Reagan had a little issue getting in there when he first started because
that's funny.
they were worried about a security threat in
Sure.
the building.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You find gun ammunition
casings,
casings, you're going to be a little freaked out. That's all I've really got for inspiration.
Okay.
So
I've decided to add a new segment.
danger,
It's
Will Robinson.
the in with the new, out with the old.
Okay, let's go with
And
that.
it's really just the films. And not all films are going to have this,
Sure.
but a lot of the films we've talked about have new innovations or have paved the way for new things. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to mention those.
let's bring some light on it.
Before Die Hard's release, Hollywood action films often started like really muscle-bound, kind of masculine men like Schwarzenegger, Stallone, who were invincible, they were infallible,
Yeah.
they could do no wrong, they were these unrealistic heroes.
Yeah,
This film kind of redefined what an action hero can be.
it really did.
Yeah. So he presents as a normal person with an average physique.
Yeah.
He's failing in his marriage. He's got failings both personal and professional. And he comes across a little more vulnerable than some of the action heroes that had come before him. So I think this was really kind of the first film that really paved the way for films like that. And then after that was like an explosion of
the
films.
floodgates kind of opened.
The
as
floodgates
your
opened.
Average guy being a hero.
Yeah. It really made him relatable to a lot of people because, he's an average schmo. And it also paved the way for the phrase die hard on / in a blah, blah, blah. So what I mean by that is, for example, Under Siege, the movie Under Siege, die hard on a battleship.
Yep. It really
Cliffhanger, die hard on a mountain. Speed, die hard on a bus.
Yes.
So that phrase is used now in Hollywood when a film does the die hard type feel, but on something else or in something else.
Yeah, the lone hero who's got to deal with an entire army of bad guys.
Yeah. The other thing that this film paved the way for, and Alan Rickman in general kind of paved the way for, was changing the game for bad guys.
Oh, sure.
So he's kind of the first bad guy that, instead of being crazy and maniacal and, a lunatic, he's able to show us that a villain can be educated and intelligent. He kind of serves as an antithesis to the hero.
Yeah.
So he's a different kind of villain that we hadn't seen before.
Indeed.
Or very often before. Maybe Bond films, but that's probably as close as you would get to a villain that was like that.
But you'll also notice in this movie, McClane and Gruber, they never physically fight.
No, they don't.
There's no punches between them thrown, no kicks, no nothing like that. It's a mental game between the two nearly the whole way through. Now, John McClane does fight with a lot of other villains.
He does.
A lot of the henchmen, but they're the muscle.
Yeah.
Hans Gruber is the brain.
And, there's a part when they wanted to bring him in, they wanted to put him in, like, fatigues and make him look kind of
Army-ish.
Maniacal and army-ish. He insisted that he needed to come in a suit and look sophisticated. And that was his idea. And it worked really well for his character because that's what he was. He was the brains. He was not the brawn.
And even the brawny guys all came in
looking pretty tight.
Primarily suits or turtleneck.
Yeah, it really changed the game for your whole bad guy scenario.
Yeah, sophisticated terrorists.
Yeah. So that's all I have for Out with the Old, In with the New.
All right. No, that's a cool little segment. I like that one. That works wonderfully. Out with the old, in with the new. Let's also talk about the fact that in our Batman Returns, we talked about how many suits Catwoman had to wear. In this movie, they had 17 shirts. So a far cry from the number of suits they had made for Catwoman. And I'm certain
they were way cheaper.
Less expensive.
Yeah.
But he had 17 shirts that he went through in various states of decay and
Bruce Willis's character?
Grime. Yeah. So 17 of those A shirts.
I'm sure they were auctioned off to all sorts of different organizations.
I'm sure many of them were. I know that he had kept at least one.
Oh, yeah.
In 2007, Bruce Willis donated his to the Smithsonian Museum.
Aww.
So It's
That's a
there
nice place to have it,
No, I
though,
think that's a
'cause
great place.
It's there now.
Yep, it's a cultural artifact.
So Lloyd Levin, I think he's the producer of this film. He hired Jeb Stewart to write the adaptation for Nothing Lasts Forever, but it was under the caveat that he retained the Christmas in Los Angeles setting. So it's a Christmas movie.
Also, on top of that, the movie takes place on Christmas Eve.
It does. Absolutely.
You can hear many Christmas carols
You can.
during the film.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful. Dum-da-dum, delightful.
Even Run DMC they didn't throw a Christmas song in there, but Michael Kamen put Run DMC's Christmas in Hollis in there.
Yeah.
McClane even asks for Christmas music, and Argyle says that this is Christmas music.
Run DMC.
Uh-huh.
So you got any Christmas music?
This is Christmas music.
Well, and D'Souza and Stewart support it being a Christmas film.
And so does Fox.
Yeah. So I think Bruce Willis is the only one who thinks it's not. But on the 30th anniversary in 2018, 20th Century Fox stated it was the greatest Christmas story ever told.
And I would agree with that statement. To even dig that hole further, Theo even references 'Twas the Night Before Christmas.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring except the four assholes coming in the rear in standard 2x2 cover formation.
While he's doing some of his hacking.
Yeah, and according to D'Souza, Silver predicted the film. He predicted the film would be played at Christmas time for years to come.
And it sure has
been.
And
it sure has been. So you can tell what side of the fence we're on.
Yeah.
We're not saying you're wrong.
Form your own opinion.
But you're wrong.
I'm not going to go out there and say Bruce Willis is wrong. And if he insists it's not a Christmas movie, that's his opinion.
That is his opinion. He was in the dang film.
But let's even go so far as to say that John McClane even wishes Argyle a Merry Christmas and a Santa hat and ho, 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 now I have a machine gun are
on a dead body in the elevator.
A dead terrorist. And there's so many. It takes place during a Christmas party.
It does. Yeah.
In an office.
And he's even bringing a gift to his daughters.
To his daughters.
Yeah. I don't know.
His children, at least.
It's hard to argue that one.
It is. Hans Gruber even presents a Christmas miracle in the form of...
In response to a terrorist incident, you asked for miracles, dear. I give you the FBI. So, not trying to change anyone's minds, just putting a little info out there.
We might be trying to change your mind.
Feel free
just a little bit.
Form your own opinion on the whole ordeal.
This movie was originally pitched as Rambo in an office building.
Basically is what it came out to.
Yeah. It was referring to the successful Rambo film series, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And they hired John McTiernan because of his work on the film The Predator. He agreed to direct on the condition that the film would have, quote, some joy.
Oh,
and not simply contain mean, nasty acts as seen in other terrorists' films.
Oh.
So even that, joy.
Yeah, joy.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
And
it's
ode
Christmassy.
to joy.
It's pretty Christmassy.
Christmassy. It continues to fall in place there.
It does.
Again, not going to say it's not a Christmas movie. Just maybe. The last thing that I wanted to mention is in reference to Alan Rickman on his first day of shooting. The very first scene he was filming was where Hans and John McClane actually meet face to face. In that scene, Alan Rickman jumped kind of off a small ledge. It was like a 3-foot jump. When he did, he injured the cartilage in his knee, and he had to actually be taken to the hospital. The doctors gave him a knee brace to wear underneath his pants. So
this is the scene where he...
So this is the scene where he and John, where he's walking through the unfinished floor of Nakatomi Tower, and John McClane stumbles across him, and Hans Gruber is feigning to be a one of the party goers. Right. Like, oh no, please don't hurt me, please don't kill me. You're with them, aren't you, terrorist?
Please God, no, you're one of them, aren't you? You're one of them.
So he's pretending to be an American.
Okay.
So in that scene, he makes a small jump. I don't even know if that jump was... In fact, I guarantee that jump wasn't included in the movie. So he makes this jump, hurts his knee, gets taken to the hospital. The doctors give him a brace he has to wear underneath his clothing because you can't have the brace shown on screen, obviously. His character is not supposed to be infirm.
Right.
So he has to wear that knee brace And whenever he's standing, he typically has to stand on one leg, his good leg, because he can't put pressure on his hurt leg.
So every time you see him standing, he's
on one leg.
That's pretty funny to think about.
He had to walk with crutches. So what an ordeal for poor Alan Rickman, taking this role he fought so ardently against, hurting his knee.
So I read that he had to fall backwards onto a blue screen airbag. Mm-hmm. Is that the scene you're talking about? No. Okay, so he had to do that too. Yeah. And it's something that most stuntmen try not to do because it's dangerous. But they convinced him to do it.
Yeah.
And by convincing him to do it, McTiernan himself fell back onto a pile of cardboard boxes and said, "Oh, see, it's fine. I did it." And so they had him do it, and they counted to 3.
Yeah.
But then they dropped him before 3 to get an elicit reaction from him. That's the take they used, and then they ended up doing a backup take just in case. Yeah. But that's the take they ended up using. Yeah. That's not the same scene, huh? So did he do that with the leg brace?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was
what a trooper.
That was completely different. Poor fella.
So you talked about the scene where Hans Gruber and McClane meet.
Yeah. Yeah, we just covered that a little bit.
Silver wanted a scene between McClane and Gruber before the film's denouement.
Yeah.
But D'Souza couldn't think of a plausible scenario until he happened to overhear Rickman messing around with an American accent.
Oh.
So that's actually
where that came from.
Yeah, so that's when he actually realized that he could allow Gruber to disguise himself when he met McClane. They had an earlier scene with Takagi's murder. They reworked it, concealed Gruber's identity from McClane, and then the scene was mostly improvised. Huh. So when he was, "Oh no, I'm an American, I'm part of the," that was all of him just improvising his American accent.
He does a pretty good American accent.
He does. McTiernan hated it. Didn't like it. Didn't want it in the film. It ended up staying in the film. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought he does a fine American accent. My problem with it is that his speech pattern is so specific and his voice is so specific. How could you not know it's the same guy?
That could also mean, because he figures it out.
Yeah.
I mean, McClane figures it out. He knows already.
He knows from the get-go. But it still was a good American accent. There's no taking that away from him.
Absolutely, it was.
His voice is just so
distinct.
It
is, yeah. So Bruce Willis insisted on doing a lot of his own stunts. We had just briefly discussed that earlier. His first scene was a shot where he leapt from the top of the Nakatomi Plaza with a fire hose wrapped around his waist.
Quite the jump.
Yeah, it involved a 25-foot leap from a 5-story parking garage onto an airbag with a 60-foot wall of flames exploding behind him.
Yeah, so cool.
It sounds so cool, right? But oh my gosh, so dangerous. He considered it one of his toughest stunts ever. And the explosive force pushed him towards the edge of the airbag, and the crew was concerned he had died.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Stuntman Ken Bates stood in for Willis when his character's hanging from the building, however.
Okay,
so
yeah.
He didn't do...
Just a little extra danger
He didn't do
there.
all of his own, but that one was... I think it's interesting that they thought he died.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then he didn't, and they're like, okay, let's just keep moving on.
Keep on rolling.
There's another scene where he shoots a terrorist through a table. Mm-hmm. He actually suffered permanent 2/3 hearing loss in his left ear because the blank fired so loudly so close to his head.
Yeah, I read that the arms master for the show, or for the movie, insisted on louder blanks than usual because they didn't want to use... What normally they'll do is they'll put in those firing sounds afterward, but they didn't want to go with that, so they used louder blanks than typical. And of course, in that confined space... Yeah, and I think there was someone else had also suffered some maybe temporary hearing loss due to the same situation. I think it was Alan Rickman, if I remember correctly.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Kind of need your ears for acting.
Yeah, you kind of do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're shouting all the time. Like if we talk about
the
Batman Returns, where Michelle Pfeiffer had to shout all the time because she couldn't hear in that mask.
Yeah. Do you remember the scene where the SWAT vehicles drive up the steps?
Yeah.
At the building?
Mm-hmm.
It took months of negotiation to get permission to even do that.
Really?
Well, they finally got the permission, and so when they drove that vehicle up, they actually took out one of the railings that were on the stairs.
Ah.
To this day, the railing hasn't been replaced.
No kidding.
Still not there.
Yeah, who the hell needs a railing anyway?
It was a railing that was like...
superfluous?
Yeah, it looked okay not being there.
Like construction had an extra railing, and like, what are we going to do with it? Let's just put it here.
It kind of like that. Yeah, I think it actually went up to a pillar or something like that. They just got rid of it.
Yeah, sure.
Another thing I needed to mention was that there's kind of a weird thing with the German version of the film. Did you read about that?
I did read about that, yeah.
So the German version of the film makes the film a kind of a completely different animal.
It does change a few things.
It changes enough to make inconsistencies in the films that come out subsequently to that. So Hans Gruber and his team are like Eurotrash tourists, and they're members of the Volksfree movement. A news anchor woman even specifically mentions that they've been excommunicated from the group. And when the film was released in '88, Germany was still under terrorist threat from the German groups such as the Red Army faction and Bader Meinhof gang.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of German terrorists parading around the screen, shooting a guy from moonlighting was kind of deemed bad taste. They decided they didn't want to do that. So they fixed it by making Alan Rickman's crew and his band of terrorists Irish.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
So Hans Gruber became Jack Gruber. Heinrich became Henry. Karl became Charlie, and so on and so on. And their background changed from being German terrorists going freelance to freelance for profit to members of the IRA who became mercenaries.
Yeah.
But the continuity issue is in play when Die Hard with Vengeance comes out, because Gruber is remembered as being German in the film.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't change that or try to fix that, or maybe there wasn't a way to fix that the way that it was written.
To make it smooth.
So there were inconsistencies because of that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a different film. I mean...
It's same theme. Just
but...
kind of a different take on the villains.
Yeah, kind of a different take on the villains.
That kind of brings to mind the fact that obviously Alan Rickman is British.
Yes.
Most of the other actors in the film are American or different parts of European. None of them, however, are German or speak German.
No.
But Bruce Willis was born in Germany. To a German mother.
And he's got the most American accent you possibly could find.
So he plays the American fighting the Germans.
And he's
when
the German.
He is the half German.
Technically, he's German. You had talked about The Hunt for Red October.
Mm-hmm.
Cute little fact. The teddy bear that he's carrying on the airplane.
Giant-ass teddy bear?
Yeah. Is actually the same one used in The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, man. That bear's getting more roles in a film.
It's a stupid little fact, but I like it. There's Takagi's office, like where all the parties going on. There's like a little waterfall, and it looks kind of like really...
It reminds me very much of like a Japanese garden.
Yeah. It was taken from some of Frank Lloyd Wright's architectural designs. And Joel Silver, the producer, is one of the producers. He's really like a big fan of Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
So one of the news networks it's like a fictional network, but he called it KFLW, and FLW stands for Frank Lloyd Wright. I'm having a hard time getting that out.
Yeah.
So that's just a little
nod
to Frank Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd Wright's, his architecture designs were incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Some really cool stuff.
So we had talked about Richard Donner.
Yeah.
That was for
the
Goonies, right?
Yeah.
After some of like his more recent success with the Lethal Weapon series, Joel Silver actually approached Donner to direct this film.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, but Donner had declined because he had some other commitments that he couldn't do it.
Richard Donner probably said, "Does it involve children going on an adventure?"
No?
All right,
can't
I'm
do
out.
it. Yeah, right? Well, Lethal Weapon doesn't.
That's true.
And he did such a great work on that one.
Yeah, he did.
There's a scene where McClane is crawling through the air ducts.
Mm-hmm. I remember that pretty well.
They were meant to be larger, but I think they used the real air ducts that were in the building or something similar too. And Joe Silver was really mad at the writer. And he complained because they needed more dialogue because it was taking him so long to get through the air ducts.
Okay.
So he got really mad and he called the writer, Stephen E. D'Souza, and he's like, hey, we need more dialogue because he's struggling to get through this shaft and we're running out of things to say. So the writer stood below the shaft with a walkie-talkie and fed Willis lines to ad-lib as he was going through the shaft.
Why focus so much on the shaft if it's taking so long to get through? Just cut the scene short.
Well, some people are special and they get stuck on something, and I feel like you can relate to that a little bit.
Sometimes I can, yes.
Yeah, it's probably something he just couldn't.
McTiernan he just really liked the whole idea of that AC shaft, I guess.
I guess he really liked that, and he didn't want to stop shooting and just called him in and had him help him right away.
More dialogue.
More dialogue. Don't get out of the shaft yet.
No.
We're almost there. Steve D'Souza is on his way.
Yeah. We don't even really need to show the scene of you crawling through the air ducts, but I really want to. So more dialogue.
More dialogue, please. And speaking of Stephen E. D'Souza, he's the one who wrote about the fist with your toes thing.
Oh, yeah.
He says that he can't vouch for it, but it works for him. So he doesn't know if it's an actual thing, but he actually does it himself.
I know as a kid when I would travel with my family, because we lived away from areas where our extended family lived. So we would often take
You were all over the country.
kind of long flights or drives to get back and see family. And I remember as a kid, after having seen Die Hard, I would often walk around and make fists with my toes.
Did it work?
No.
No.
But it was nice.
But it was nice.
It's still nice anyway. It didn't it didn't relax me from the journey, but it still felt nice, sure. Not on really low carpet, though. It had to be kind of fluffy.
Like the fluffy, like you can almost grab it with your toes.
Yep.
You are a toe grabber.
I can grab stuff with my toes.
Yes, Ziggy. Earlier you were talking about how Alan Rickman's not German, he's English.
Yeah.
But he did an excellent German accent.
Mm-hmm.
He actually reached out to a German dialect coach to get some of the German correct. And he studied it a lot to like really make sure he got the accent right.
Sure.
When he tells Takagi that he enjoyed making models as a boy, he says, "I always enjoyed to make models when I was a boy."
I always enjoyed to make models when I was a boy. The exactness, the attention to every conceivable detail.
Which would be the correct German way to say it in English.
Yeah.
So sometimes it sounded like he wasn't saying things right, but he was just saying them a way a real German would
As
say
a way
them.
someone would be translating it in their head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I
that's
thought that was an
interesting.
interesting little, tick to the German language.
Yeah, a lot of people would call it and be like, hey, they're screwing up their lines. But no, that's very purposeful.
Literally doing that on purpose.
Huh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Okay, folks, Leia's got one sort of spoiler for you. And it's coming in just a moment. But this is your chance to get the hell out of here.
It's a book spoiler, so if you're going to read the book.
We still want to be respectful of people who want to read books.
Yeah.
So even though it's not directly movie spoiler, this is our first ever book spoiler.
Yeah.
So go now if you gotta.
Or plug your ears. Just don't listen for like a minute.
Whatever you gotta do.
Yeah.
All right, there's your chance.
Get them back. They're sitting ducks up there
they're
without
almost
lights.
in.
Get them back.
Almost in. Send in the car.
Go.
The only other thing I got is that there is a main difference between the book and the movie. So the main character, Joe Leland, who would become John McClane, he's visiting his daughter.
Oh, right.
Not his
yeah,
wife.
That's right, yeah.
And there's an actual terrorist attack rather than an elaborately staged robbery.
Right.
The love interest in the book is actually the flight attendant from Joe's flight to LA.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah. And his daughter dies at the end when the main when the main antagonist falls and drags her to her death.
Yeesh.
So, additionally, Joe, the main character, ends up being permanently crippled by the time the book is over.
Oh, damn. Yeah, that's quite a different story.
All right. Yeah, so that's all I have.
Yeah, that's me too.
I really enjoyed looking into this film. I didn't think it would have so much information.
You wouldn't expect an action film to have this much.
That much in-depth background.
Into.
I mean, the inspiration.
Yeah.
We did Upgrade not long ago, and there was like no inspiration.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot there. It was just an idea that
he fleshed out
had and went with it.
Yeah. So I like films that have a little bit of like real in-depth inspiration.
That was really good. It was a fun learning experience for us. Hopefully a fun learning experience for all of you. And with that, Leia, I guess we gotta close it down. I mean, do you think we managed to crawl through our air ducts and cross our floor full of glass on this dangerous, is it a Christmas movie, is it not
I
ordeal?
think we did, and I didn't actually get much glass in my feet, so we're good.
Yeah, me too. I feel all right with it. I did wear my shoes, though, so that probably helps.
Yeah. Bruce Willis did say that he still cringes to that scene.
I would too.
I do too. I still do.
I guess one last little bit before we kick everybody out. They actually gave him some kind of flesh-colored, look like feet shoes to wear during that scene. So that's
really?
if you watch really closely, you can see that they're not his actual feet. They're actually larger than his feet should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, he actually wore shoes that looked like feet.
I think most of us suspend our disbelief
Yeah.
and just try to, like, we don't even notice it.
No.
'Cause we're trying to imagine
Well, yeah,
it.
when you're watching the movie, you're watching this dude go through this suffering, of course.
All right.
All right, yeah. So I think we did all right.
Yeah.
Let's shut it down. But of course, as always, before we kick it, everyone who's out for spoilers,
Oh, yeah.
come on in.
You should probably come back in and
Or
listen to this.
unplug your ears, whatever you're doing there.
Yeah, whatever you're doing.
Or just willfully ignoring us. Who knows?
It's fine.
So now that everyone's reassembled, check out the Movie Theater Lobby, themovietheaterlobby.com. Check it out on YouTube at the Movie Theater Lobby and on Facebook at the Movie Theater Lobby. Also, the Movie Theater Lobby at gmail.com if you want to send us a message real quick. If you got something long to say, if you got something short to say, hit us up on the Facebook or Instagram or Blue Sky. We are on both of those now at the Movie Lobby.
Yep.
So feel free to send us a message there or follow or interact, reply, share, all that stuff there. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, YouTube Video, Podcast Addict, wherever you like getting your stuff from. Hopefully we're there.
All of our socials are on our website as well.
All of our socials on the website if you want to go there.
And all of our places to listen.
Episodes are there. Check us out in those places. Find me, Brandon McLeavy, on Facebook at Brandon McLeavy and Instagram, BrandJNRP. Maybe I'll jump on Blue Sky as my own individual account at some point. But Leia, tell the folks how they can find you.
So you can find me, Leah McLeavy, at LM Nerdroom on all of the previously mentioned socials and at lmnerdroom@gmail.com.
Perfect. Go ahead and talk to that lady anytime. She's
Anytime
got
you
wonderful
like.
things to say.
Sometimes not so wonderful.
Sometimes not.
Careful.
She can be a jerk.
I'm kidding.
I'm kidding too. All right. Finally, thank you everyone for giving us your time and attention on these merry holidays. Whatever your religious beliefs or celebrations, traditions you like to follow, I hope you're all having a wonderful one or have had a wonderful holiday. And Leia, as we walk out of the doors, a thank you.
And thank you.
We'll see you all next week on
The Movie Theater Lobby.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hans, Bobby, I'm your white knight.
I must have missed 60 minutes. What are you saying?
The guy upstairs is fucking things up, huh?
I can give them to you.